Hello, this is Stephen Matchett from Campus Morning Mail with Expert Opinion, where we ask people who know what's happening in vet and higher education. We ask them what's happening. It's winter, which means open days are already on, and at campuses across the country, people are preparing campaigns to attract prospective students to real and virtual campuses and working on ways to keep them entertained when they arrive. But does all the fun of the fair work the way it used to? Tim Winkler wonders. Tim's the principal of Twig Marketing, Australia's original, and many will still say best, higher education marketing comms consultancy, and I'm fortunate to be able to say a CMM business partner. Tim, thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Stephen.
Tim, last year you wrote in CMM that COVID had changed an already antiquated model of open days. And you wrote, marketing and recruitment teams cling to empty brand designs and try to saddle an uncomfortable space between the old open day concept and a new hybrid information event. So today, first up, what's the pandemic changed? And on the basis of the last 2 years of open day campaigns, have recruiters caught on?
Oh, that's such a good question. You know, last week I was sitting in a focus group. I was running a focus group for a group of Year 12 students, and one of them said to me, "We get quite a lot of universities coming through and visiting us. They presented our school, and I said, 'Oh, right. Which ones?' And she said, 'Oh, it doesn't matter. They all say exactly the same thing. We only need to see one, but then we have to sit through all the others because essentially it's a person up the front doing a PowerPoint. They have nice pictures of the campus. They tell us their courses are great, and then everyone's too scared to ask questions at the end because it's in a big group.' And that was summed up a feedback that I've had from students across the country who have essentially said for years now that we have a really antiquated approach to domestic recruitment. So over the last 2 years, I thought, well, the pandemic's occurred. We have had to really rethink the way we do things across universities. There's going to be some substantial change. It emerges into 2022, and in fact, it's not really the case. There's a little bit of change with a few universities, but an awful lot of people are really yearning to party like it's 2019 and get back to the good old days of a PowerPoint, an open day, and some balloons.
Well, that raises two really interesting questions about, because open days are not just about school leavers anymore. I mean, what, 25% are what we laughingly call mature age students, people who are as old as 25. How do you pitch to them, or how do people pitch to them now, and how should it change?
It's one of the great conundrums when you look at the way different universities are working. Some are pitching to those students, but to be honest, most aren't. Most are trying to find their way to universities in spite of what we offer them. So they wade through websites with pictures of 18-year-olds on them. They try and find their way, and they often are left to find their way into the uni through their own means, and usually through the front end of the website, and hope that they can get a response from application forms and find their way through enrollment. So we really are still geared very much towards a school leaver biased domestic recruitment approach. And when you contrast it with the way that we've tried to recruit international students for years with a much more personalized approach, you have, people going to fairs overseas, you've got agents as well. You've got people sitting down and getting individual attention on a regular basis, or almost for every student, you're expecting to get some level of individual interaction to help them on their path, choose a right course, get to the right university. And of course, there are flaws in that system, but it's very much oriented towards service and towards helping people find the course that they want. Whereas in the domestic world, we're really much more about a herd mentality. We talk to classes full of people. We get as many people as possible to our open day, even though we can only actually take maybe a quarter of the number of people who might even turn up to our open day. So there's a lot of questions about, well, what are we actually trying to achieve with our domestic recruitment events? We might attract 60,000 people or more to open days, and we might be able to take 10,000 as just for point of argument in terms of numerical sense. So what about that other the other up to 90% that we're trying to attract to our open day, who are actually never going to get in our door because they can't reach our ATAR levels or they don't meet criteria?
But that sounds to me like you're describing an ancient history model of mass marketing.
That's absolutely it, and unfortunately, quite often we're still stuck with that approach. Whether it is through the virtual approach, where we're still seeing measurement in terms of number of clicks on coming in, or through the traditional physical open day. It's a broadcast based mass marketing approach rather than a dialogue based approach to counselling students and to getting them in and getting the right fit for the student who might want to study arts or social sciences and isn't quite sure. We're covering those gaps and solving those problems. All too often, there's people at the back of the mob waiting to talk to someone. They're either too afraid to talk to the person, they don't get clear information, or they don't actually get to talk there. So it's a real challenge.
Which point? Well, how do you switch to a more social media based targeted model? How do you reach individuals? Can it be done? I can hear recruitment directors' heads exploding in the background. They wonder how they're going to pay for anything other than this approach.
Well, I think we have to start by looking at, every university has a small recruitment team. They also have a domestic marketing team. We have, that'll mean you've got anywhere between 20 and 80 individuals in some universities focused on attracting domestic students. So if their work and time is currently being channeled to mass marketing approaches and mass events, and if we accept that the market research for a decade or more has been saying that is not as effective as it could be, then it means we could potentially stop some of those things and start doing something different. So it doesn't necessarily mean a huge resource allocation. That's the first thing. Second thing is social media is definitely one avenue where we could do more personalized approaches to people and approach them on their level in a medium that they like. But there's also a whole range of other options to talk to people personally. For example, when doing a school visit, do we have to stand up the front, or is it actually better time spending 5 minutes or 15 minutes with small groups and talking about what they want to talk about rather than what we want to talk about? A lot of this comes back to the mentality of universities setting the agenda for what gets said rather than listening to what people want to hear. Once you start to break down that power dynamic, if you like, in communications and start to really look at what's going on, there's a bit of a disconnect there. I did some research some years ago now, but it was with about 1,000 first year students, and more than 50% of female first years said they would not have chosen the course they were in if they'd known what it was all about when they enrolled.
So does that raise a question that is part of the problem, internal clients, that recruiters have got to keep the Dean of X happy and the head of Department of Y, really doesn't like the competition at the next university and wants to hammer away on what his courses are or her courses are about?
That's definitely a problem, and that's clearly a problem for most professional staff. That there will be occasionally there'll be a lot of traditionalists who would like to see things done as they have always been done, and a little reluctant to embrace new approaches, even though evidence may show that the old approaches are not working anymore. So there's clearly a, you can call it lobbying, you can call it education. There's an internal conversation that needs to happen to give recruiters and marketers permission to keep the balloons and the tablecloths in storage for another year and start to work towards these alternative methods of recruitment. But I would say that I would be very happy to sit a business dean, a dean of any faculty in a focus group and let them listen to the students and the experience that people are having, and the mismatch between expectations and delivery. And it's pretty compelling.
Then, of course, there is the post-grad market, which it is now a mass market in all but name. I'm wondering. Well, I remember you wrote something about this, where you just looked at enrolling in a coursework master's in marketing, and the experience was perplexing.
It really was. What I found there was I spent an hour and a half after hours one night looking at if I wanted to enroll in a master's of marketing in a Victorian university, what would the outcome be? I found that universities for domestic marketing still only want to operate within business hours, which means that for parents who want to find out more for their undergraduate students or people looking for postgraduate courses, it can be really hard to find information after hours. Secondly, there were some real issues with use of technology. So a number of universities had installed technological systems, CRMs, that would enable them to capture information from people seeking course information and then send that through. But they weren't working in a number of the universities I went to. And in fact, only 1 out of the 9 universities was really doing it, what I would say, reasonably well. I also looked at the types of messages that were sent as follow-up. Only some universities actually do follow-up inquiries, even now. For postgraduate, you would think that there would be a fairly strong and rapid follow-up, but it's quite surprising. The level of lost leads in this space is very high, and the language and the approach used to follow up is often very offhand. Come back and look at our website in 6 months, and you can see whether the course you want is available then. That sort of approach, as opposed to thanks very much for your inquiry. We haven't got that now, but we'll keep you on a list and we'll get in touch with you as soon as here's these other 3 courses you might want to consider. It's a pretty easy service model that you would find in most shops or car sales yards, or it's not asking a lot of universities to be civil, be a bit warm, and try and provide a couple of alternatives that might suit the buyer.
Well, that raises a question about how you organize your brand marketing. For that, one thing I want to look at the possibility of how they're going to respond as the market, as their products fragment. I mean, what happened with the previous government's undergraduate certificates over 2 years? That was a smallish bucket of money that nobody was expecting to get, but for 2 years it gave a lot of opportunities. A lot of universities worked really hard in the amount of product courses they created. How are they marketed?
Well, the certificates are really interesting because, as you say, that a number of universities did some really great work in creating new courses there. They have got a bit lost because they don't fit within that traditionalist model. And until there's a little bit more flexibility in how we're offering up courses, new offerings like this are often rendered relatively invisible. I was talking to a university in New South Wales about their marketing recently and why new approaches might be required in comparison to open days, for example. And they were saying, actually, one of the biggest challenges is persuading parents that their children don't have to have a cookie cutter experience of their own 1990 or 1980 university experience, that many parents were seeking a clone of their own university years and wouldn't accept anything else. So there's a range of challenges, but clearly, if you can communicate on a more personalized level with different stakeholders, you're going to get better results. If you can talk to parents and explain some of those differences and say the new world is better, and you'll get a lot better results.
But for the mature age market, they aren't going to be listening to mum and dad, and they are also way harder to find. So be it, and I think the undergraduate certificates are probably finished now, I think, but micro-credentials, or indeed coursework masters, professionally based coursework masters. How do you reach men and women like that?
There's a range of, there's a range of good approaches. That one is sort of creating communities of interest, and people flock to those naturally through a range of approaches. But the approach that is often going on at the moment is to spend an awful lot on social media ads and just keep spending until you get the required numbers of students. Which is rather inefficient. There's a lot better ways, and we're clearly missing many students at the moment, which makes the sector a little more vulnerable to the new operators, to the Googles, to the others. So, for all those mature age students who just simply give up because they can't find their way through the website or can't find the new product that we have, it suddenly makes some of those other much easier to use new operators a little bit more attractive, even though their credentials are less well received and perceived to be of less value currently by both students and employers. It opens up that market.
The Victorian government has got a big push to expand its early childhood education. And it needs a lot more teachers, and it's got an arrangement now with VU, making study really convenient to existing teachers, to upskill to degree level. How would you reach early childhood teachers?
It's a great question. There's a range of ways to do that by, working through member networks for early childhood teachers, by, targeted social media, direct mail, and so on. I think one of the greater challenges is to make sure there's a really clear link between what we're telling them and what their motivation is to sign up. A lot of these campaigns are too based. We assume that people are going to want to study a postgraduate degree, and we think that it's really obvious what the benefits are, but sometimes it's not that easy. And certainly showing them, if they've been out of university for some time, or perhaps not even in university before, showing them how it can be easy to study, and the types of what's behind the walls, what's my experience like. Again, I was talking to some other groups over a few months ago, and we were talking about brochures, and they were saying, I want to see people doing real things. All I'm seeing is airbrushed images of people, but I actually just want to see a student in a classroom or someone going and doing a real job. And of course, we show them some of those things in some of our brochures, but there is a tendency towards the glossy and presenting the best possible image that we think we can present. But sometimes that's really getting in the way of actually informing people and giving them what they want.
What about in vet? Thinking particularly at the mature age level, where it's not part of a training pathway, but somebody in vet who wants to up their skills in a particular field. How do you reach them? I mean, it's a big world out there. There's a lot of competition for their attention.
It is. There's a lot of competition. I think there are heaps of opportunities to grow vet enrollments. Part of the challenge is that there's less revenue in that system to be able to pursue mass marketing campaigns, and just less resources for marketing overall. So they tend to be very constrained in how much they can do and who they can reach. So it's a real challenge for the vet sector. I think opportunities like in New South Wales, where there's a much more coordinated approach to organising vet overall, it offers some real opportunities in terms of reach and scale. And but ultimately, you know, if I want to be a plumber and I'm in Port Macquarie, I don't really want to know about generic issues about being a plumber. I want to know, can I go and study it in Port Macquarie? Can I work in Port Macquarie? Most people seeking vet are going to want to study in a, you know, relatively close to where they're living at home, fit it around their home, and then look forward to a career. You know, some will want to move, many won't. And we have to recognize that reality and then work with localizing a lot of information, because generic information typically washes over people. There's way too much of it in the sector.
If you are a plumber in Port Macquarie and you struggle with your cash flow and you want to understand how it works, and you haven't got the hours to go to class, someone's got a course for you online, but how do they tell you about it?
Oh, well, that is the $1 million question. I mean, there are a lot of approaches which we need to experiment with right now. Typically, what works is when I've gone into a university, because, you know, I work with a whole range of universities all over the place, and you typically need to go and do some market research, get a group of plumbers together, do a bit of qual and bit of quant, find out what they're reading, how they're communicating, what sort of messages are going to cut through relevant to them, and then use that information to then change the way or guide the way that you market to them and reach them. And you get to people far more cost effectively if you do it that way, and far more effectively.
I think we're pretty close to time, but one question for you. If you were a university recruitment director looking at walking around your open day events, worrying about your numbers, wondering what the competition had, what are you going to say to what are you going to say to the DVCA, who naturally wants to grumble?
Now, there's a good question. I'd be saying how much better the open day is than last year's was. I'd be able to explain why it was better and have some really solid reasons that we're reaching, not that we're just reaching more people, but we're actually engaging people and answering people's questions and getting people really interested and in attending another event later on. There's an interesting thing with a couple of universities who are doing either a virtual or a public open day followed up by other days. So they're moving towards an opportunity where they're realizing the mass communication event, it shouldn't be the one-day wonder. We need to progress towards you know, at least a 2-day opportunity to find out what we want to get, but ideally a multi-day interaction. So the student doesn't have to always turn up on campus for all of those days, but we're getting to them, answering their questions. Oh, so you want to do engineering and you've worked that out from open day. What type of engineering? Do you want to see our campus? Do you want to see how we compare with the others? Because we know you've gone and collected the brochures from them all, but you probably don't really understand much from just that quick interaction. Let's talk to you about it. Let's talk to your parents. Let's talk to the mature age student and explain how we've got flexible working. So it's all those personalized interactions, which are the goal, because it suddenly turns it from a one-day opportunity to decide the next 3 years of your life to a more leisurely and informed approach to decision making, which is better for everybody. So the university that masters that, or the TAFE that masters that, are the ones that are really going to hoover in the students.
From a marketing tool to a marketing channel.
Absolutely.
Look, we're out of time. Tim Winkler from Twig Marketing on Open Days. Thank you very much for your time. I know you're busy. I appreciate it. And this has been Expert Opinion from Campus Morning Mail. Thanks, everybody. And we're out.